Whole time
Oh,
I've
yeah.
known you.
You know who? Well, I will tell my wife. She'll be very happy to hear that.
Good. She did it?
Yes, she
Awesome.
did. She did a pretty good job, mostly. So there's a
That's
little bit of
awesome.
a bald spot on one of these sides here. We're getting a little bit too close, but
Tony, I saw it today, and I nearly fell on the floor.
What'd you see today?
Peter's haircut.
Looks awesome, doesn't it?
I don't know. I was in shock.
that's why you fell on the floor. Well, I'm glad that that's what was going on. So
Yeah, we didn't have to call rescue.
I was a little bit worried for a minute.
Wonder where you saw him.
Yeah.
Place that served sandwiches.
No, he was here.
Oh, you were there at the office. Okay.
Yeah.
He was
I dropped it in the
transacting
office.
business.
We masked up and, had a cordial mask up meeting.
Cool.
So
I'll be there tomorrow.
my question is, if power blows out while we're in meeting, how do we adjourn?
I will address that once we get started, right before we start, maybe, because I maybe will tell Sharon and everybody will nod heads that it's actually if I get kicked off, the meeting goes away because I'm actually hosting the meeting. So
How often have we lost power at the town hall, though?
sometimes we don't have a backup generator here. So
Okay. Well, if we talk fast, we'll be okay. Doug, this is more reason to.
Exactly, Peter. Exactly. We're not pointing fingers at anybody.
No. Well, I doubt you're pointing them at me.
No. No, if we can get you to say anything, that's a plus.
That's what I figured.
What's the storm like down by you?
I'm here. I'm right in Freeport.
Oh, you're back up?
Yeah, it's just blowing here. I mean, I would assume it's the same where you are.
No wind here in South Freeport. We have wind control.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, one of the perks.
All right. I think we are live on cable and live on Facebook. So as soon as we get some people in, I'll start the record. What's the appetite to talk about recycling and trash pickup?
Not a lot from me.
I don't see Danny mentioned in this at all.
So, I mean, all the vendors are mentioned, just not by name.
Right.
So,
We've
yeah.
had Danny discuss since we've started talking about this, haven't we?
Yeah, I think that's part of the discussion. Yeah. But you're right, there's no mention. So,
Yep.
Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
Going good. How are you?
Busy.
How's the wind in your neighborhood?
Windy.
Mine too, but not in Doug's, he said. Everything's perfect there.
Everything's perfect there. You
South
just
Freeport.
over your house.
Yeah, South Freeport, it has to be.
Yeah. Well, you do have that ridge right behind you.
Yeah, a buffer.
so we are not live on TV on Comcast tonight because there's Comcast issues throughout town, as I've been told. So not a problem on our end, but apparently the signal's not getting received and rebroadcast. So
There's
we're live on
Comcast-
Facebook and FreeportFCTV3.com and YouTube.
There's Comcast issues every place.
Yeah, I guess people have been having data service troubles too throughout town, connection troubles. So it is what it is. We're not going to be able to fix that, but we're sending it out. It's just not going anywhere when we're sending it out. So we're seeing if we can. The cable 3 folks are seeing if they can make it work. So
Good.
Hi, Dan.
Hey, Peter. I like your haircut.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. We'll have to. I'm getting close to Chip and Doug. I'm just trying to step it down.
Oh yeah, you're close. You're
Yeah.
so close.
Hey,
Yeah.
it's like a half an inch away, man.
We can make it closer.
Not much closer. There's only 2 numbers in between there and the set of clippers. So
No, Chip and I will get out the razor.
yeah, that's true. You could always get closer. All right, I'm gonna start our record here of it. So, but we're already live on some of the streaming facilities. John is around. I was just talking to him, so I'm expecting him in a minute or two. And Sarah already talked with her. She's going to be here today. So I think we're going to have a full crew. There he is.
Did not get her documents.
Which documents?
Sarah sent out some documents, said they were attached to email, and I didn't
Oh,
see
the PAC stuff.
which is okay.
I'll look right now and see if I've got them.
Did you all get them in that same email? Maybe
I did see them. Yeah. Let me. At least I thought I did.
I don't think I have them.
Yeah. So there's a spreadsheet, CARES and PAC's draft civil rights plan. The 2 attachments. Looks like it went to everybody. I was on the same.
Yeah, I mean, I got it. She said it, but when I was looking for them,
It's recent. It's PAX.
Did anybody who didn't get them? It would have been at 9:59 a.m. this morning.
I did not get them.
Nothing. I'll reply all.
yeah, it doesn't. Oh, there it is. Okay.
For what it's worth, it came through for me. Hi, everybody.
Eric,
Yeah, I got it. It doesn't
You're
show it on the
email.
email. It shows it in the. It shows it on the email when it shows. Look, there it is now. It wasn't
Okay.
clear. Could have been my system. I've been having issues with my internet too.
John, you missed a short meeting this morning.
Did the policy get recommended to come forward?
It did get recommended to come forward.
Fabulous.
hey Peter, can you just make sure my email's spelled right? Because I still haven't gotten that.
Tawny, thank you very much for volunteering for Johanna's appeal committee. I appreciate it.
Yes, of course. Yep. Absolutely.
So Dan, you'll have to. Is Sarah on the call yet? Hold on, I've navigated away from my screen. Well,
Right.
you'll have to let her know when she gets on. Apparently, you were left off. So, me, John, Eric, Tawny, Doug, Chip, Sarah, in the town clerk's office. So let me.
I just forwarded that to my work email so I can look at it on this screen when we get to that item. But
Okay,
Was
it's
that
coming.
the
It's coming to you, Dan. I've sent it.
Thank you.
Doug, was that the complete streets policy that you were mentioning a minute ago?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
cool. Nice.
2 years of work.
Yeah. Well, Doug, my hat is off to him. It's off right now.
Yeah. It looks like it too. And Dan will have a chance to look at that on our ordinance committee meeting.
Great.
Awesome.
I mean, if council recommends that it go there.
all right, we're just about ready to go. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have enough to get started.
I do know Sarah was planning to be here, so she did email all of us today saying she'd talk with us tonight. So
She's
not that
not,
we have to wait, but
she's not on vacation until next week.
this is correct.
Yeah, I talked to her today. She's definitely going to be present.
And the flag is ready. Great, thank you. I feel
There she
awkward
is.
sitting down while we do that, but if I stand up, then I'm going to be out of view of the camera. So I'm not sure what the protocol is there, but
I think if we put our hands on our hearts, it covers it all, John.
yeah. My camera's not that flexible, Peter, so thank you for demonstrating.
And Eric looks like he's standing already. They've taken your chair away.
Wait,
And now we can see something other than the top of Chip's head.
Yeah.
okay, we are rolling the record, Mr. Chair, whenever you want to go.
Okay. And there's Sarah, right on time. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us. Nice to have you here. Nice to have everybody here. We will call the meeting to order. Hopefully my dogs don't bark from the knock. Council meeting Tuesday, August 4th, 2020. This is meeting number 17-20. we'll call to order. And our first task is to determine who's here. As we do with all Zoom public meetings, we ask for counselors to announce their vote individually. So we're going to start getting practice on that by just going down the list of who's present. Counselor Whitney.
Here.
Counselor Riley.
Present.
Counselor Lawrence.
Here.
Counselor Pilch.
Here.
Counselor Horn.
Here.
Counselor Tracy.
Here.
And the chair, John Egan, is here. Our first order of business for this evening's meeting is the Pledge of Allegiance. Tawny has a flag, and we can recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
Flag.
of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God,
Under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty,
and justice for all.
Thank you, Tawny. Our second order of business this evening is to waive the reading of the minutes of meeting number 16-20 held on July 21st, 2020, and to accept the minutes as very carefully prepared by Sharon Coffin and included in our packet.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, in order to take a formal vote, we have to get an enunciation of vote from each of the members.
Does the
Counselor
dog
Whitney?
count as the barking dog count as a vote?
I don't understand most dog barks, so I'm going to say no, Doug.
Okay.
Counselor Whitney?
Yes.
Counselor Riley?
Yes.
Counselor Lawrence?
Yes.
Counselor Pilch?
Yes.
Counselor Horn?
Yes.
Counselor Tracy?
Sarah's muted.
One more time, Sarah.
Sorry. Yes.
Thank you. And the chair votes yes. The minutes are accepted as presented. Thank you, Sharon, for detailed, accurate description of our last meeting. Our third order of business this evening on our relatively light agenda is announcements. I have a couple to start with here that I'm going to read so that I get all of the times correct. The Freeport Community Library is now open during the following hours. On Monday, 12 to 5, Tuesdays, 12 noon to 7 p.m., Wednesday, 12 to 7, Thursday, 12 to 5. On Friday, the indoor part of the library is closed for visitation, but is available for curbside exchange of books and pickup materials from 12 until 4 p.m. So that's 4 hours of curbside at the library on Fridays. There is a limit to 10 people in the building at once to maintain social distancing, and each person is asked to limit their visit to 30 minutes per visit. For more details on how this is going to work with our wonderful Freeport Public Library, please go to the library's webpage on the town or on the town's website, or you can just go to freeportlibrary.com to get all of that information on our library openings. The second item I have here for announcements is nomination papers are now available for the November 3rd, 2020 municipal election for the following offices. There are several seats on the council as well as the RSU and our utility districts. There is one seat available for councilor at large. The District 2 councilor position is up for re-election, and the councilor District 3 position is up for re-election. There are 2 seats available on the RSU Board of Directors, 2 seats available on the Freeport Sewer District Board of Trustees, and 1 seat available on the Freeport Water Company's District Board of Trustees. Nomination papers are due back to the town clerk's office no later than 6 p.m. on Wednesday, September 9th, 2020. For more information on how to go about this wonderful process to get involved in your municipality, please call Christine Wolf at 865-4743, extension 123. So the procedure is you have to take out papers to collect signatures from your community members who will then nominate you for one of the positions that you've identified to run for, or several if you choose. And in order to start that, you have to pick up an official nomination form from Chris Wolf at Town Hall. That could also be emailed to you if you want to speak with her over the phone. Those are the two announcements that I have. Other councilors have any announcements they'd like to make? Okay, we will move on to our fourth order of business, which is information exchange. This is an opportunity for councilors to share participation in various town committees and ad hoc groups that we participate in as town councilors, and other items of value to share with the public at our town council meeting. Does anyone have items for information exchange? Councilor Riley.
Today, the Complete Streets Committee met, and after 2 years of very diligent work, lots of effort, lots of input, many, many hours, they approved their policy, and it's recommended to come before council for approval. I'm asking that it go before ordinance committee first, so that we can give it due diligence. The amount of time that they put into it, I think we need to respect the fact that we need to do our fair share of making sure that it is the document that we would like to have going forward. So, but I congratulate the committee on the work that they did and the amount of effort. John, I know you sat on a few of these meetings and you know what's taking place there. So congratulations to them, number one. Number two, I actually walked into the library on Monday and it felt really, really good. And it was about 12:30. There was no line, no wait. Everybody was very cordial. All the safety, disinfectant, hand sanitizer, everything was present there. But the ability to go into the stacks and select a book was like going to heaven, I think. And then on the exiting, going out, to discover that there is a new outdoor sitting area with Wi-Fi access so that people could actually take time and pick up whatever they brought from the library and begin to look at it right there in the comfort of the green space outside. So it was fantastic.
Great. And I would applaud the work of the Complete Streets Committee, in particular Committee Chairman Doug Leland, who has been very patient and thorough with his process of organizing that policy statement. And also thanks to Adam Bliss for staffing that committee. Other councilors have information exchange items. Councilor Whitney.
Yes, I have been attending with the Arts and Cultural Group, and they are continuing to work very hard with thoughts of revitalizing downtown, which is a theme I love to work on. And they have sort of a different, this is a lot of similar ideas, but they're working on a grant right now, which is going to actually be submitted in 2 days. And Peter, I think, is going to speak about this also, right, Peter? Or no? Okay. But anyway, it's a collaboration with the town. And so we're hopeful that they'll get their grant approved, and that will give them some funding to do some different programming throughout 2021. So that's been great. Thank you.
Very good. Any other items for information exchange from fellow councilors? Councilor Tracy.
I attended the PACS Executive Committee meeting this morning, and I just wanted to share a couple of items, if you don't mind me doing that. Let me just see if I can execute it. If not, I'll move on, but I thought the information is interesting. The first one is—
Sarah, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you start with what PAC stands for those listening?
Oh, yeah. Portland Area Comprehensive Transportation something. Is that right?
That is right.
Okay.
System.
It's sort of the transit funding agency. It's a regional agency that has all the southern Maine and also some western Maine communities. I'm the council liaison, and just a couple of things that I thought, these are excerpts, but I just thought these are interesting. The first one is they have a lot of CARES Act money to distribute, over $53 million. and they shared with us today how they're distributing it. So just bear with me real quick. I'll get, okay. So just up at the top, you'll see there's $53 million. And unfortunately, I couldn't minimize it so you can see the whole spreadsheet. But in column B is what they've already distributed February through June. And then column C is July through December. And so they're, of interest, they're funding regional transit operations in $3 million. They're actually, if you see in column C7, they're going to give $1.6 million to Concord Coach to get that up and running again. And then they have a lot of improvements that you can see under pandemic recovery and resiliency, cleaning and sanitation, things that they're doing to encourage people to ride again. And then also we've had sort of some discussions around disadvantaged communities, making sure that we have equity. And so PACS is also spending $60,000 on improving access for older adults, people with disabilities, minority communities. So there's a lot of money going out through this organization. You'll see $423,000, almost $424,000 is going to Metro, which is the transportation hub that we're a part of. Now we're actually a member of. But you'll also see at the bottom, row 28, there's $31 million of balance remaining. So I think it's really important for Freeport to stay cognizant that there's federal funding coming through PACS, and we really need to key into this. Other communities are keying into it, and we need to really identify where there's funding available for us to access. Sometimes there isn't, but sometimes there is.
Question.
Councilor Riley?
Sarah, do we know when Concord's going to be up and running again?
My understanding was a couple, and let me just disclose, they're a client of my employer, Pierce Atwood. So although PACS decided to fund them, I recused myself. So just so that's all clear. But my understanding from the discussion today is a couple of months that they'll be reopening doors.
Okay.
And then the other thing I just wanted to share, and I'm hopeful that I can just do it now. Can you see this map? That didn't work. Okay.
No, we're still looking at the PACS spreadsheet.
Let me just try one more thing, and then if I can't do it, I'll stop. I have.
Sarah, it's only going to share the window you selected. So even if you navigate away from that window, I think you need to stop share and start share on a new window.
Okay, so I just need to, I see, stop share. Got it. All right, so now I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. And share. This is just, can you see the map?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I circulated this to the counselors earlier today. I know it's small, and I don't expect everybody to grab it right now, but this is about 8 different maps. They're color coded. They're really interesting. This is the PACS community, and this is from their draft civil rights plan, and it's in draft form, which is why it's only a portion of the screen. They'll issue a final one soon. I don't expect the visuals to change, but this map shows the percent of population living below the poverty level in all of the communities, and you'll see Freeport up there. We have over 5 to 10%. The ones in yellow are less than 5%. The ones in darker are obviously greater populations. But I'm just going to skim. I'm not going to do a big thing, but this shows, it's more for future reference. I just think it's really interesting. This shows minority populations. Yellow has less, obviously darker has more. And then elderly populations. So obviously a lot of the towns have, heavy elderly populations. Language proficiency, you'll see Portland has darker because there's more populations with limited language proficiency. Yellow has less than 5% with limited language proficiency.
That's English language proficiency.
Yeah, fair clarification. Sorry about that. Disability populations is this one. Green is less than the darker colors, percentage of population living with a disability. And then the last one is households with no vehicles. Actually, that's not the last one. Hold on. Foreign-born populations and equitable target areas. So, so I just say this because it's an interesting for counselors who are trying to get a sense of where Freeport is relative to its surrounding communities. I found it interesting to have that in pictorial form to give us a sense of kind of where we're landing on a lot of those demographic differences. So anyways, just point of information.
Thank you. That is very interesting. Peter, will that information be available as part of the record of this meeting so that residents who may have just caught a glimpse of those maps will have a chance to look at them?
We can put that up on the website tomorrow. I've already got the email from Sarah. So, and I think you emailed Lynn in the clerk's office too, right, Sarah? So that should be entered into the record for the meeting. I will make a note to put it up with the backup materials for this meeting on the website.
In addition to budget discussions, which generally occur in the midwinter of our of our budget season, I know there's a number of times when just that exact dynamic comes up, Sarah, in terms of how we compare to our surrounding communities. Anytime there's a mention of school funding, that's certainly an item that comes up in terms of how we're comparing to other communities, tax burdens, level of municipal services. So it's really interesting to see the demographics of the communities around us. So thanks for sharing that. And that's one of the compelling reasons why we belong to these regional organizations, is that we're not on an island here in Freeport. We have to coordinate and be engaged with our surrounding communities for access to resources. So hopefully we'll be able to propose some good ideas and engage in projects to access that CARES money that PACS has got available. So that's really valuable information. Any other members have information exchange they'd like to share? All right, before we go on to our next item, which is the town manager's report, I just want to remind anybody who's listening or watching through Zoom or listening on their phone that we will have public participation opportunities in the agenda. In fact, coming up after the town manager's report is our standing item on every single agenda that is called public participation on non-agenda items. So if you are watching on Zoom and frustrated that you can't get access to say something, we do have several elements in the agenda where we can open up the microphone feature, bring you into what's called the live access part of the panelist side of the participants here in our Zoom meeting, and you'll have a chance to speak in live time. We don't turn on the camera for that portion, just the audio. So you will have a chance to listen, ask questions, and respond to counselor comments on your items. The major one is coming up after this item, the town manager's report. And then later on, we're going to have a informal discussion about recycling and other waste management topics. And we'll be able to take some public comment during that period as well. So I just want to remind people that it's not just one way here of us going through an agenda and talking, that we will have some participation later on. So Peter, you're up for the town manager's report. And you're on mute.
Not anymore. There we go. Everyone hear me? Good?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So got a few things. Councilor Tracy actually contacted me earlier and asked for an update. Sarah, I think you probably saw the email that I sent out from Jessica, our finance director, but regarding revenue sharing forecast. And it was just actually released yesterday. So that was a very timely request. We actually had to go look it up. The question came in as to that the state had just released revenue sharing estimates for distribution, given the economic downturn, as many people are aware, revenue sharing is when state revenues are divided up and a portion of those get shared by a formula back to the municipalities. And that has to do with taxes collected. So obviously by the state, so obviously in an economic downturn, when you're not seeing things like rooms and meals, sales, taxes, things like that to the same extent as you would outside of an economic downturn, that number gets impacted and pushed downwards. So we count on that to meet our revenue goals to some extent for the year. If you recall, or those that were on the council, if you recall, revenue sharing had traditionally been, has been for many years at a lower level than what was originally authorized by statute. We had just in the past 2 years started to bump that number back upward to where it was originally intended by the legislature many years ago when it was instituted. Those changes happened legislatively. The previous legislatures had increased the revenue sharing percentages to get back towards the original but not to the original statutory intent of the revenue sharing program. So the good news is that in our budget this year that we conservatively budgeted on the revenue side, number 495,000 for fiscal year 21 in return, revenue sharing back return from the state. And the state is estimating, their forecast right now is that for Freeport is 618,000, almost $619,000 for that same period. So we are over that amount by about 120,000. I'm not going to go do a happy dance over that because that's just their estimate. That number, that 620,000 approximate number could be significantly lower than that. So I think the $500,000, 495,000, roughly $500,000 number that we've budgeted is completely appropriate and is a safe number for now. This is one of the many items, including excise tax revenue, so any non-property tax revenues that are kind of on our watch list right now, both the finance director, Jessica Malloy, and I. And part of the reason for that is that if any of these revenues that we use to build our budget show a steep drop or, essentially tank in the middle of the year due to the economic downturn, or if it gets worse, a serious recession, we would have to make mid-year budget corrections. So we are not on track right now based on this forecast for any problems, but we will be watching that throughout the year to kind of see what the performance is. They make quarterly payments on that. So the performance against the 620,000 roughly number. So we may be back in front of the council. If you don't hear anything for the rest of the year on that, it's all good. It means that we're kind of hitting those estimate numbers and we're over our budget amount. But if there's any problems, we would be back to you when it's reported to us. So there's still kind of 3 or 4 more opportunities. This might come back up to you in the current fiscal year, which just started a month ago. So is that sufficient? Does that answer your original question, Sarah, with the kind of concerns that have been brought up that you had heard about at PAX from the other municipalities?
Yeah, I mean, the discussion among PACs is obviously that municipalities are going to face dire consequences as a result of the COVID-19 epidemic, and obviously it was of concern when I heard that the revenue numbers came out from the state and I didn't know what they were. Yeah. So I'm glad to hear that we have appropriately budgeted. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Peter. And that we're stable, but that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Well, thanks for bringing it up, because that literally it just came out yesterday and we had to go dig on the state site to get it. We probably wouldn't have gotten it for another couple of weeks. So I will confess I had a little mini heart attack. I'm like, oh God, was it really bad? Did something happen that was way below what we're expecting? But it's pretty good. I mean, it's terrible. They're terrible numbers compared to what they should be, but in the current economic situation, we won't panic about it. It's fine. Okay, so that's item 1. Item 2, I just wanted to, I've gotten contacted a couple times via email and by phone, people with questions about absentee voting and concerns about the November election, which, as you're aware, is the next big election, right? This is going to be the presidential and the general. So we're expecting heavy turnout like the last presidential election in 2016, which was a 80+% voter turnout event for Freeport. So naturally, people know that that's kind of to be expected with the level of interest in the general election coming up, the presidential and the general. And people, there's a little bit of concern, but there's just a lot of questions about, how is that going to work? Do we have to be there in person? We've talked about this a little before, but as everyone here is aware, but many in the public might not be, you do not need, there is no reason why you cannot absentee vote in the coming November election. So there is no, you don't need to come in, you don't need to give an excuse, you don't need to give a reason. Things like that had needed to be done in the past and still are in many places. Like you'd have to have a valid reason. Most of them accept fear of going into a poll place because of COVID or because of health concerns now is a valid reason to do absentee, although that's not the case in every state. Most states now do recognize that. But in Maine, you need to take no special steps. You need no justification. You just need to come here to the town clerk's office, call, or come in to request an absentee ballot. So, and I think they can even do them online through the Maine state website too. So,
Peter, can we get that announcement as a running thing on our sign now at the Public Safety Building? It's not too soon to start advertising that absentee ballots are going to be available. And we put up that date to sort of bring some comfort to the opportunity that people are going to have every chance possible to vote, because there's a lot of rhetoric in the press about potentially not having a chance to vote. And I don't want us to have anybody in our community that thinks they can't vote.
Yep, I'm 100% with you. We will absolutely do that. And so I'm starting that right now, but there's obviously other ways that needs to be communicated. We'll work on with staff. I do want to share the kind of a very interesting set of two numbers, the July primary and the March primary. If you recall, March was the presidential primary, and July was the general, the statewide primary, which had the Senate race on the Democratic side. It was contested. And all of our local races were, I think most of, if not all of our local races for reps and Senate at the state level were contested. So, and obviously the March primary was the presidential one, which was heavily contested or at least somewhat contested on the Democratic side, not at all on the Republican side. So the numbers show a stark difference. In the March primary, we had 700 absentee voters and 2,800 in-person voters. In the July primary, which was the one that just took place, that was the June primary that got pushed off till July, it was almost identically inverted. 2,600 absentee votes and 500 in-person votes. So my concerns are less that we need to make people aware that you can absentee vote, because it looks like half the electorate right now understands that you can absentee vote. We just need to make sure that we can physically deliver those ballots, and that's going to be a tough task with twice the turnout probably from that primary for the clerk's office to handle, but they were able to do the 2,600 absentee votes, no problem. So really fascinating if you look at that, and we're expecting that number to kind of maybe double for November, but people who went to vote in person, there were no crowds, there were no lines. It went really well. Everything was spaced, which if you've ever been there during a busy election, that's not always the case. If you try to put even in March, 2,800 people through the school gymnasium in a 10 or 11 hour time frame can get crowds and you can get lines. So we are pushing the absentee. We will absolutely make sure that that's out there, that people know that they can do that. And you're welcome to go and vote in person. You don't have to vote absentee, but I think clearly the majority of people in Freeport here are showing that they prefer to, 5-1 prefer to vote absentee in the most recent primary. So that was a 40% turnout. So that's really effective.
Eric's got a question for you, Peter.
Yep, go ahead.
Does Christine feel adequately resourced if, say, you double or 2.5 times the mail-in votes? Because I know she can't start counting those ballots until polls close, as I understand it. So
they can process them generally starting the weekend before. So the Scantron ones are the ones that they can process them. So yeah, so they're absolutely, and I asked her that question. I think she may be bringing on extra people. Those numbers obviously can't be released. There's a whole set of guidelines about what you can and can't do with those numbers to affect the election. But yeah, they can start processing them in at least, logging them, all those kind of things. So yeah, they're comfortable. We will make sure that whatever they need for staff, it's a 1 or 2 day expense. It's not, it's not anything that's going to break the bank for us if they need additional staff. But if anything, it's more stress on the office end of things, on this end of things, and Lynn and Chris here in the office and any of us that need to help them out, just to get that many ballots out to people, you know, in the period beforehand. So
How early are we able to access the absentee ballot? Is there any way for us to move that date? Probably not as a community.
I don't know if they've, I don't have a good answer on that. I do know that we're getting requests right now. I don't know if they're processing them and queuing them up, or I know that we don't have ballots to send out, and we don't do that until the state gives us the date and issues the ballots for them to go out. But I believe that they're taking requests right now. So I will have an answer for that at the next council meeting. So we will let people know several months in advance. But I know that we're getting requests. I believe that they're logging them in. So so it's really a fascinating change, you know, just numbers wise of what we're seeing here. So it's a good thing. It's a great thing. You know, there's no reason. We've done physical hand counts, you know, before, recounts and things like that. And there's no reason here, at least, to believe that there's any, you know, problem with an absentee vote not being accurate. You know, the numbers that we get back on vote night, if you recount them or if the Secretary of State recounts them the next week, I think one we did, you know, we're within a few votes every single time, like one or two, you know, for several thousand counts. So it's fairly accurate.
Thanks, Peter.
There's a paper trail of it too. So, you know, that's the best part with
Right. Thank you.
the signed statement. Last but not least, I've got one quick item here. We were contacted. This is several. I've talked with a few councilors on this, and a few of them had some funny reactions to it, but I'll let everybody know. We've been contacted by Maine Water, who operates the water utility here in town, and they are going to be painting the Bow Street water tank. This in the next 2 months, that's going to get done. And seeing as we own that tank, which is a very interesting arrangement, they have asked us for input on what color we would like it painted. Now, before we get crazy, they gave us a very narrow range of colors to operate in, which are light green, light blue, and light gray colors. So those are for their operational reasons. It obviously can't be hot. It can't be something that absorbs heat. And the gray, the green, and the blue are things that blend into either the sky, the trees, or the clouds. So interestingly enough, we have been giving exactly 8 days to come up with a response to them. So I'm not talk about short notice, huh? But it's okay. At least they're asking our opinion this time. So I'd like the council's permission to do the stupidest thing I've probably ever done and do a public color selection contest. I know the council chair thinks that this is, I think he's going to fire me after this one. He thought it wasn't too smart, but I'd like to use the website and Facebook and solicit input from people. We will not be choosy. We will not be picky about disqualifying or saying only residents or anything like that. Over the next six or 7 days, I've chosen some light colors from the options given to us, which I can show you here. And I'd like to put those in front of people and ask them to rank their top 3 and then compile a list and give it to Maine Water. They can't guarantee a specific color. They need to get, you know, thousands of gallons of this paint in the specific color, but we were given a palette and they would try to honor our, you know, one of our top choices, they said. So it's a $500,000 project and it's going to last for 20 years. So whatever color is chosen will be visible up there in the skyline. For those that don't know, the tank is very visible from the Main Street area. Can everybody see this picture right here?
Yeah.
So this is from Bow Street looking down to the tank, and it's currently like a mint green color. So that's what we've got to work with. And these are kind of some of the colors that we've initially narrowed down, which are very similar in the very similar range. We've got some light blue, a dark blue, a gray, a white. This is almost the current color, this diving board blue. It's a very close match to that kind of mint green that's there. And then a kind of a slightly medium green that matches kind of a little bit with the trees behind it. So that's where I'm at. I'd like you folks to tell me that's not crazy, beside John, who clearly thinks I am crazy, which is okay, and I respect that. Because
Riley, I'm happy to entertain your question, but if you suggest that we form a council committee at this, I'm going to stop.
No,
I will not. I will not. I just like to get some input from the public here. So
I already gave our town manager my input on this, and he threw me out of the office at the time. But,
green, sickle, orange is not an acceptable color, councilor. We've already been over this.
Right. But I did have a suggestion by one of our constituents that said, is there any opportunity to add additional cell phone towers to that water tower?
There is. We're actually working on one right now with, I believe it's Verizon, with a lease up there. All the major carriers are located currently on our 2 tanks that we own, except for this one doesn't have Verizon on it. So yes, we make money off that. I'd be glad to give you the rundown of how much that is. It's significant.
That will please the constituent who has Verizon service.
Yeah. There's actually
No doubt we can use all the amplification of cell signal in Freeport that we can muster.
That'll come to you guys for approval, actually, for the lease. It'll be a long-term lease. So that's where we're at. Councilor Pilch, I'd like to throw on you the responsibility for drumming up your neighborhood interest there, because you guys are going to be looking at that. Some people out their front door, I think, for 20 years. So we won't do anything crazy. Absolutely not. But we'd love to hear what the neighborhood has to say up there.
Yeah,
too.
I was just about to weigh in with that offer that out. I'm happy to circulate that around the neighborhood. It's the end of my street. But also a serious request too is that as they do the painting and the other radio antenna work that I know is coming to us later, to remind them that though it's tempting to drive down Quarry Lane, I think the right of way should be up from the Bow Street kind of trail. I know that's been an issue in the past. So if you could remind Maine Water and then whoever's doing the radio antenna stuff, I think that would also help.
Anytime that somebody comes to us for permission, we constantly tell them they've got to go through Bow Street, but most people don't have to come through us, for regular service. So we get complaints regularly from some of your neighbors. I don't think I've ever talked to you about it, but I'm sure some of your neighbors have talked to me about people driving through, heavy traffic going through there with equipment and stuff. So yeah, we'll make sure that's a point.
Councilor Tracy?
Well, following up on what Councilor Pilch was saying, I wonder whether we should, I don't want to make it more complicated, but I wonder whether that neighborhood we should make a deliberate communication, like stuff their mailbox with a flyer to look, because obviously people who are in Councilor Pilch's mailing list, email list, great, but there are residents there who may not be, and we're picking and choosing residents, and I think it would be good to at least make a determination with like what's a reasonable circumference. That thing is a huge part of that area up there. Yeah. So I don't know whether that's too much to ask, but
no problem. We can try to reach out. The only problem is we'll make every effort, absolutely, specifically for that neighborhood, because I think it's most visible to the Quarry Ridge, residents. There's not too many up there, but it's not as visible from downhill on the Bow Street side because it's kind of up above your head at most points in time. But I think you guys are level with the base of it, right, Dan? Kind of where you.
Yeah, honestly, it's more visible from people who live downtown on Main Street and other side of Main Street than it is. I don't see it from my street, aside from one of my neighbors who's it's in the front yard. We don't really see it from here. There's too many trees in the way. But from downtown, I think is where you see it.
You only have 8 days to do this, so that's the limitation.
We'll get it out there. We'll try to blast it as much as we can. I think there's no way that we'll get everybody or that we won't screw it up in some fashion, but just try to get as much, a few people said, just pick a color. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not really comfortable because they're going to be up there painting it. And then it's going to be the wrong color for 20 years. And they're going to call it Peter's blue or something like that, So, okay, great. So that's the direction we're going, just announcing it here and stay tuned. I do not need a council committee. I think we can make the recommendation to Maine Water and they will, try to get us the preferred color that we pick in order, what's available, how many thousand gallons they need. So fascinating project. I never realized it was $500,000 worth of paint going up on one of those tanks. So, or that it had a 20-year lifespan. I thought they were a little bit less than that. So.
Too bad we didn't have more advance notice. I thought you were going to say we were going to have an art competition or something to put something like on the side of it.
I think Doug suggested that we could have naming rights if we had more time and auction them off, and we don't have the time. No, I was thinking maybe one of those humpback whales breaching. We could get it painted on the side.
White shark.
Yeah. No. Too soon.
Okay.
Too soon.
All right. We want to stay off of that slope. Peter, there was also an item in the package about confirming the 3 voluntary ad hoc members to the appeals committee for Johanna, the FHA fair hearing.
Yeah, I think that made it onto the consent agenda.
Oh, it is on the consent agenda.
Yeah. So that'll be coming up next vote or 2 votes from now. You guys will have.
Okay.
Do you want me to explain a little bit of what that is?
Yeah, I was thinking that we would do that after your report, but if it's on the consent agenda, let's preface it right now and then we won't have to take it off of the consent agenda.
Yeah, so exactly. I can share that. So the Fair Hearing Authority, it has to be appointed to hear appeals of general assistance decisions, and it has to be appointed by the council or the municipal officers, which is the council in this case. It would be the selectmen in a town meeting town. So it's just an item. We picked a member of the council, a member of the community that does social work, and a town employee not related to doing social work that doesn't touch any of these cases. So it was kind of constraining to find somebody that met all three of those criteria, but I think we've got it. Councilor Whitney volunteered, who has some experience being on the council, but also doing some social work in her past. Sarah, who's the director of programs at FCS, Sarah London, who obviously has a lot of social service experience and also has done general assistance in the past. And Nick Adams, who is doesn't touch anything that has to do with general assistance here in the town hall, kind of an impartial third-party employee who works with ordinances, who can read an ordinance and interpret it. So it's kind of challenged to find somebody that doesn't work with Joanna or doesn't oversee the GA function. So
Great.
That's the formula that we've used in the past. It's been at least 10 years since the previous council had appointed one, but they've always used those three combinations, that kind of balance to try to balance the hearing panel.
All right, great. Thank you for a little bit of preface on that, and we'll take that up at the consent agenda item a little bit later. Anything else in the town manager report, Peter?
That's all I've got, Mr. Chair. Thank you. That was lengthy.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a couple of opportunities for public comment. Right now is one of them. This is an item that is on every one of our council agendas for members of the public to identify their intent to address the council and get to speak and potentially participate in a dialogue if appropriate on non-agenda items. This particular segment of the agenda is for covering any topic that may be on your mind, an issue that's come up in the community, a question you have about municipal functioning, something coming in the future like elections, whatever might be on your mind. If it's not specifically on tonight's agenda, it is fair game for this next segment, which is called Public Participation on Non-Agenda Items. Very tricky title. So the process for doing this on a Zoom call is that you use the raise hand feature, which is if you're watching on a computer screen at the bottom of your Zoom screen to raise hand. You will then be moved from the spectator to the participant side of the Zoom technology, and you'll be able to address the council in live time. Peter Joseph will monitor that list for members of the public who raise their hand virtually. You can also press, I think it's *6 on your phone if you're listening on your telephone, and have the same action. And I'll give a couple of minutes here for people to line themselves up for that action if they want to. Sometimes there's a bit of shyness about being the first one. So we'll make sure that we hold that open before we close the public participation period to make sure that people have a chance to chime in. So Peter, do we have anybody that's in the spectator or listening side that has indicated a desire to speak to the council?
We have several people. Nobody's got their hand up virtually. I do recognize at least 5 of the 7 are here for another item. So we've got a few other people though. So. Okay.
And you have access to the phone numbers of somebody that might be listening on the phone as well?
I do not have anybody called in
Okay.
on the phone. So they're all using video device or
all using the Zoom. Right. Okay. So I'll just provide another 30 seconds here of confidence building time for anybody in the audience spectating on the Zoom call that wishes to address the council. Use the raise hand, indicate that you're interested in addressing the council, and the manager will recognize you and move you over to the participation side of the screen here, and you'll have a chance to address. This is where we'd be playing the little interlude music if we had an audio soundtrack to go along with our meetings here. Anybody indicated, Peter?
Nope, and I don't have the Final Jeopardy song up either, so.
All right.
I'll work on that for the next meeting.
I do want to remind those people who are watching potentially for an additional discussion later on that we will have an opportunity to hear from the public in our informal conversation, which is at the end of our agenda on recycling and waste management issues facing our community. And so that's much less formal. We're not taking any action this evening. It is a public discussion on those particular topics that we'll take up after our regular agenda, which we should be able to book through here pretty quickly. There's not a lot of sticky items. All right, if we're not seeing anything, then we'll move on from the public participation to the next item of business, which is the 7th order of business. Take action on the following items of business as read by the council chairperson, which constitute the consent agenda. To consider action relative to adopting the August 4th, 2020 consent agenda. Be it ordered that the August 4th, 2020 consent agenda be adopted.
Second.
There any reason for a particular item on the consent agenda, which was included in your packet, to be removed from the consent agenda and brought to the regular agenda for discussion and consideration by the council this evening? Otherwise, we pass the entire consent agenda with one vote and all of the items take effect. We have the motion moved and seconded. Are we prepared to vote on the consent agenda? Any other questions or comments? We'll move forward with a vote on item number 130-20. Councilor Whitney?
Yes.
Councilor Riley?
Yes.
Councilor Pilch?
Yes.
Councilor Lawrence?
Yes.
Councilor Horn?
Yes.
Councilor Tracy?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. The consent agenda is adopted. Thank you. Our next item is item number 131-20 to consider action relative to amending the 2020 Town Council meeting schedule. Councilor Whitney, could you please read the be it ordered?
Be it ordered that the 2020 Town Council meeting schedule be amended to remove the annual joint meeting with Buston's Island and add an additional Town Council meeting on August 18th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments about our slight change in schedule? It's very disappointing that we're not going to get out to Buston's Island. Certainly one of the highlights of my entire time on serving on the council is that meeting in the summertime, and not just for the boat ride. It's a fabulous evening out there. What a special community we have in this town with that island and its history. Councilor Tracy?
I just want, I'm not running again, so this would have been my last Buston's Island meeting. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank the residents of Buston's Island for 7 great summer events, all of which I've attended. And it's been lovely every single time, and it will be sorely missed this year. And I look forward to other councilors having the opportunity to do it again. I encourage everybody to participate. It's really just shows what community is all about. So thank you to everybody who puts that together with so much effort every year.
That's your district too, Councilor.
It is.
Yeah, you're here.
You're going to miss Buston's Island, but I'm going to miss you.
There'll be new blood with new energy. So.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any other comments on the schedule adjustment we're making? We'll take a vote. Councilor Whitney?
Yes.
Councilor Riley?
Yes.
Councilor Pilch?
Yes.
Councilor Lawrence?
Yes.
Councilor Horn?
Yes.
Councilor Tracy?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. We'll make that adjustment to the meeting schedule of the council. Our next item is item number 132-20 to consider action relative to a radio communications bid award to Radio Communications Management, Inc. Councilor Pilch, could you please read the be it ordered?
I can. Be it ordered that the Radio Communications Management, Inc. the bid order that Radio Communications Management, Inc. be awarded a contract for the comprehensive upgrade of the town's radio communication network in the amount of $350,056.51. This upgrade includes upgrades to and the expansion of the town's entire radio communication network, which is currently used by the Freeport Police, Fire, Rescue, and Public Works departments.
Second.
All right, so this has been an item that's in our capital budget, so it's not a new or a surprise expense. We've been planning on this, and it's actually a little bit under what we budgeted for. Peter, is there a brief summary on the process here and any particular elements that you want to highlight about this bid award?
Yep, I'll be very brief. We've got a radio communications network now. It is sufficient. It's got problems. Specifically, the issues are not that people can't hear what's put out over the radio, but it's that not everybody can talk back to the radio everywhere in town just because of geography in the low-powered portable handheld units. So we have 2 current sites that probably cover 80% of the town. There are still like little pockets, specifically east and west of town, kind of in the Webster, Granite kind of area, and then the Beach Hill towards Brunswick area that have bad reception. This would expand from 2 to 4 sites, and it would upgrade all of the equipment on the current existing 2 sites and the 2 new sites to an all digital and analog hybrid system. Currently, the system is completely analog. The police department has forward compatible digital radios. They would switch immediately to digital. The fire department and public works would remain with their existing equipment on the analog bands. They may choose in the future to upgrade, but it's unlikely because analog works for a lot of what they're doing, and it's comparable. So this would take care of a few little problem areas in town, but also do a substantial upgrade to the backbone of the whole communication system. There's not, everything is not on fire. The sky is not falling right now in terms of the radio system, but there are problems, and there always have been, in terms of these kind of little areas that this seeks to address. And that's really what it is.
Thank you. I'm assuming that Chief Nurse and Chief Jordan and Mr. Gibson at Public Works are all in favor of this bid award.
We had a very extensive, like as in 6-month extensive speccing process for this RFP that we put out that involved all of our town departments and also some outside departments, specifically Falmouth, that have some radio experience in their police department who've recently gone through a very similar process. They assisted us pro bono, and they kind of gave us some of their staff, their communications staff, to help us develop the RFP impartially, kind of to see what we needed. So yeah, we've had a lot of input on this.
I know there's a lot of discussion about municipal expenditures, particularly on capital items, and $350,000 can seem like a lot of money, but when you're in a crisis situation and you can't communicate with the base or the police department or the police station, you would be pretty sorry that we didn't spend the $350,000 to be able to make that communication in an instant during a crisis situation. So I'm glad we're upgrading. Councilor Riley?
Age of the existing system?
There's not a specific age. A lot of it has been upgraded. It's been in place for, I don't know, 20, 30 years, but the individual parts of it have been upgraded. I would say the most recent part, since I've been here in 8 years, maybe 6 years ago, we put in the Winslow Park station, the repeater down at Winslow Park. So we went from a 1-site system for years to Winslow, which picked up probably another 20%, a lot of the flat land on the coast and kind of the islands. So that was the most recent upgrade. I think Sarah would remember that. I think you were probably the only one on the council, but that would have been about 6 years ago. We did that upgrade, which was substantial. I think it was close to $100,000 for that site.
Yeah,
so
it's a lot of money.
Work is not cheap. But the rest of the system, to answer your question, Councilor Riley, has been, the pieces have been replaced piecemeal. The station, the antennas, the microwave link back to Brunswick. There's not a set single age of the system other than it's been around since we've been using radios.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any more comments or questions about the communications equipment upgrade bid award? We'll go ahead and take a vote. Councillor Whitney,
Yes.
Councillor Riley,
Yes.
Councillor Pilch,
Yes.
Councillor Lawrence,
Yes.
Councillor Horn,
Yes.
Councillor Tracy,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes, unanimous to accept the bid award for Radio Communication Management, Inc. for the public safety communications upgrade. Thanks very much. I know there was a lot of staff work involved in getting those specifications, and very pleased to hear that we're going to get this in place and have much more thorough coverage for our public safety teams and public works. That item concludes our regular action agenda for this evening. We have one item for other business, which is a more informal segment of our agenda for a little bit more back and forth. We're not taking any action on this item, which is related to recycling and potential discussion of curbside pickup of municipal waste and recycling. And we've had a number of people express interest in what the council is going to do specifically with the community-based recycling containers now still in place. We have one at the Public Safety Building and one on Hunter Road near the Public Works Building. That's down from the 4 that we have had in the past. Not entirely this exact council, but last year's council made a decision to remove 2 of those because of the level of contamination in those containers was costing the town a significant amount of penalty fees at Eco Maine, in addition to hauling fees for less than full containers. I know we have an extensive amount of data that has been collected in that year since that decision was made and went into effect August 1st of 2019. And on tonight's item for this, I know Adam Bliss has a presentation to make, and the Freeport Sustainability Advisory Board is also present at the meeting this evening and will very likely be making a presentation and hopefully participating in some dialogue to answer questions on this topic. Since we had a very light agenda this evening, I'm hoping that we can spend the hour that's allocated to go over this item. Again, we're not taking any action or voting on anything tonight, but it's a discussion that we're particularly in favor of, and that we are excited to hear what the data shows on the collection and the contamination rates in those containers. So I think the order we'll start with is town engineer and town staff member Adam Bliss, if you could start your presentation, or maybe you have a preamble before you get going to kind of set this up for our informal conversation this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Good evening, councillors. My name is Adam Bliss. I proudly serve as your town engineer. We're discussing this item because the Sustainability Advisory Board wanted staff to revisit the feasibility of moving away from the transfer station waste collection model to a curbside collection model. And we honored that request. And as a reminder to the public and councilors, we have been visiting recyclable contamination and curbside collection for almost 2 years now. We viewed it in through many different lenses, from cost to business impacts, sustainability in terms of greenhouse gases and so forth. And I think we've done a good job looking at the new model through as many lenses as possible. I presented a memo to you, which really distills all of those viewpoints into 4 primary issues. And I think we can work through these 2 of the 4 issues pretty easily, those being cost and the contamination. But we do need to spend considerable time working through how to ensure local haulers aren't put out of business if we go towards a curbside collection system. And then the other issue would be, how do we educate residents that the new model wouldn't violate the town charter policy? let's see, cost is the easiest place to start. Within the memo is a table that largely shows a cost savings to all users except under one of the scenarios. So the least cost to users is the transfer station. But we think we can equal that cost if we go to curbside collection. The highest cost would be those that privately contract with either the local hauler or bigger businesses that charge higher rates. So again, we're looking at cost, we're looking at local business impacts. Each scenario within that table provides different levels of service and expectations of service. Each scenario has varying levels of contamination. And I think I'll leave it at that. I could go on, but I really just want to set the table and allow certainly public to comment, but also counselors to ask questions that they may have.
Adam, just to be clear, in your table under scenario 2 and 3, the numbers that are listed there, that's what is the unit that, for instance, line 1 in scenario 2 is $135. That's $135 savings. And is it in a unit of time or is it a unit of volume? What's the in other words, to compare that to something that's tangible for what people are paying today?
So the red values represent out-of-pocket savings to residents, and the 3 scenarios compare to curbside collection. The 3 scenarios are current transfer station users, current private hauler, local private hauler contract, and then the other private hauler that serves Freeport.
Okay, so would that be on an annual basis then?
Yeah, yes, that is on an annual basis.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get at, what the savings would be. And there are some assumptions about what a per week or a per year cost is that people are using now. We have rates from the 2 private haulers, but there are certainly plenty of residents who don't engage in a contract with either one of those. And so are we taking an assumption of what they're paying at a per bag disposal at the transfer station?
So there are certainly assumptions within the analysis. We've minimized the margin of error within those assumptions to the degree that we can by reaching out to the 2 haulers and consulting with staff at the transfer station. The biggest assumption is that any single person or household brings about 6 bags to the transfer station per month. And so each bag is 90 cents, and then times 12 months would be paying about $71 a year. That's a very average cost, certainly.
Okay, and my last question, we have a couple others, hands up. In your scenarios, you indicate hauler 1 and hauler 2. Are those separated by the existing companies that we have today? In other words, the savings would be for, under the middle column that says scenario 2 would be those customers that are currently engaged with one of the haulers that you've identified here as hauler 1, and the next column is for people that are engaged with the other commercial hauler that we have. Am I reading that right?
That is correct. And just to be transparent about this, about who hauler 1 is, scenario 2, hauler 1 is our local business, Wentworth. And then scenario 3, or hauler 2, is a much larger regional hauler with, as the table should indicate, much higher cost.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that the scenario 2 and scenario 3 are not doing anything different than the current engagement by contract that residents are using now. Thank you.
There is one slight, or not slight, but there is one difference between private hauler 1 and private hauler 2. That private hauler 1 does not collect recyclables.
Right. Okay. Great. Yep. Thank you, Dan. Councilor Riley has his hand up.
In this particular scenario of number 2, one factor that doesn't show is you've described it as curbside pickup for everything else. But in the situation of Danny Wentworth and his service, he actually comes to the house and picks up at the house. So you haven't factored in the cost difference by what he is saving in time by picking up at a location rather than you having to walk down to the street to take your trash out all the time. And it should be a considered factor. It should not be a non-factor on that cost.
I do agree, Councilor Riley, and I've noted in the memo that levels of service should not decrease. And in full transparency, I've learned through conversation with councilors, with residents, and even just friendly exchanges at the Bow Street Market that Wentworth provides excellent customer service to his clients in Freeport. And just to put a number on the number of residents that he serves, we know it's at least 1/3 by household count, but it also is 45% by weight or tonnage delivered to Eco Maine.
Along that line, I'd also like to add that the scenario 1, those of us who use the transfer station, it's a very similar disclaimer, right? That it doesn't factor in any of your own personal sunk time to take your trash, put it in your car, drive it to the transfer station, throw it in. So that's not reflected. I guess scenario 1 and 3 on the memo, I guess, aren't comparable to scenario 2, because scenario 3, you've got to haul your barrels down your driveway to get picked up. That may be different for everybody. In scenario 1, you've actually got to haul your own recycling and trash to the transfer station, or to the Silver Bullet with the hopefully just the recycling, but in some cases your garbage too. So both of those they're all different levels of service, and I would say 2 is the current highest level of service, 3 being second, and scenario 1 being the lowest level of service. So those are complicating factors. We didn't try to, we ran some numbers, on napkins with the sustainability advisory group. We've bounced those numbers around, Adam and I. Like if you start, counting minimum wage and average distance traveled for scenario 1 and, miles per car and gasoline and all that stuff, you get into the big bucks, but, we can't, it's not standard, and we can't get an average. So we left it out.
Right. And I just want to highlight anybody that's listening to this conversation. This is a illustration of a potential strategy. I think the numbers are compelling, and my individual vote is I'm hoping this becomes more than a potential strategy and does move forward because of the not only the financial access here, financial savings, but also the reduction in contamination with recycled materials. And if your trash is at the curb being picked up as part of a standard town service offering, it's much more likely that we'll have a much higher participation in collecting and capturing recyclable materials, which will dramatically reduce the amount of municipal waste that the town is paying for in terms of tonnage at Eco Maine. That's the compelling argument. I just want to make sure that people understand we're not taking any action vote on this tonight, but the numbers are compelling, and I'm hoping that we can use the great research that Adam has pulled together here with the many hands that have been participating in this to illustrate that as a opportunity for us to move forward with as a community. Councilor Riley?
get myself unmuted. Okay, going back to this, we also have at this particular time the tourist season, and my non-official observation of the silver bullets, John, I know a term you don't like to hear, but we seem to be more contaminated now that we have out-of-town people willing to leave their refuse on their way going back to some foreign state. So do we see an increase in our contamination rate over these summer months?
I think we're going to get to those numbers in just a little bit. I don't want to get Adam out of sequence here, but yeah, I'm interested in that as well. I think we're going to get to the contamination discussion shortly. Councillor Tracy?
I just have a question about the cost assumptions in Adam Bliss's memo. Adam, when you say the annual collection cost is estimated to be 450,000, and then from that you're sort of comparing the costs that people are already paying to the mill rate that 450 would increase, that 450 would result in. Are you, when you're doing your cost comparisons, are you factoring in a pay-as-you-throw program too, which would you'd have to pay for the, I assume you'd have to pay for the bag? Because I note that the Sustainability Committee is recommending a pay-as-you-throw program model for equity and better environmental policy, but I assume that would add some cost to residents. Is that right?
So a couple of clarifying points. We're not factoring in yet, although we need to discuss that system, the pay-as-you-throw system. The town charter is very clear. We cannot implement a pay per bag or pay-as-you-throw system to cover disposal costs, that is tipping fees at Eco Maine. So it would have to be implemented under the to cover transportation costs, which is effectively what our punch card system does, albeit a very small amount relative to the total cost. And an important point for the uninformed relative to costs in the table is users are paying it privately out of pocket when they currently contract with a private hauler, and we're paying it through our budget for the tipping fees at Eco Maine. So we look at the sum total. We have to look at that sum total, a macroeconomic viewpoint, and educate people that your true savings. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words, but
I think to implement a pay-as-you-throw system, if everybody threw away per capita or per household per tax dollar the same amount of bags of garbage, it should not change from Adam's analysis here. What it would do is if you were a heavy garbage user and we had a pay-as-you-throw system as opposed to a light garbage user would see further savings, and a heavy garbage user would see less savings or maybe pay more than they do now. It would transfer volume. Sorry.
So just so I understand how it works, if we had and this is just an added level, we're not necessarily doing this, it's been recommended, but if we did do that, then users pay per bag, heavy users pay more because they have more bags. That money goes, you pay it at the grocery store because that's where you buy the bags. That money then gets funneled back to the town and it gets applied to transportation costs for the hauler that the town is now putting into its budget. And that transportation cost you've estimated at 450,000, but that does not reflect any offset from any revenues from pay-as-you-throw bags.
Correct. And if you charge $2 to $3 per bag, roughly on the volume that we throw away here, and the average size of a bag, that would eliminate the 450. That would generate the revenue to cover the $450,000, and then it would be completely tax driven. Any amount between $0 and $2 or $3 would kind of be proportional, but not full pay as you throw per bag.
All right.
Another compelling reason, of course, is the pay per bag is a way to encourage more recycling to reduce your volume in the bags, which I think is one of the most compelling arguments that's in the memo from the Sustainability Board, is that it won't take very long if you are, without changing much habit, you go to a place where you're buying X number of bags per month for the pay per bag option. And then you realize what recycling can do to the volume of that trash in terms of encouraging a much smaller municipal solid waste stream and a much larger recycling stream. I think that's the particular goal that puts the incentive and the motive and the result all in the same locus.
And within that same vein, Councillor Egan, it costs $35 to dispose of recyclables at Eco Maine, but more than twice that to dispose of solid waste. So we want to encourage more recycling, less solid waste.
I would just piggyback on that exact vein too, that if people recognize that if they can compost their waste, then you're reducing the amount of water going into our incinerator and weight going down the road from Freeport. And so that's something I think a lot of households have discovered, and this would probably accelerate that process as well.
I just want to note that Bali Steverlank, who's on the Sustainability Committee, provided us some useful information earlier in the afternoon, and I hope we can get that on our website, because she did do I don't know who did it, but Bali or somebody did a survey of nearby towns, and I think all of them, except for save one, have a pay-as-you-throw, or close to all of them. Maybe two don't. Have a pay-as-you-throw program. So I just note that we're now sort of in the minority of towns for whatever that's worth. But on the flip side, I think people of lower income will feel that it is an additional tax to actually have to buy orange pay-as-you-throw bags at the grocery store. That will feel difficult for them, even though maybe overall it's a savings when you do all the math. So anyways, those are two sides of the coin.
And that was one of the concerns that I've had from the beginning of this project too. And I did speak with that when I was on this committee, and they mentioned that maybe they would be able to get them at FCS for those people that maybe are picking up groceries could also have bags there, but that was definitely a concern of mine from the beginning. So maybe there's a creative way to get bags to those who need them. But yeah, I think that definitely needs to be, talked about before we close up.
We had a similar conversation. It's probably 5-6 years ago now, when there was a group that came forward to suspend opportunities for using single-use plastic bags in our grocery stores and adopt reusable grocery bags. That particular dynamic was identified that that was going to be an additional cost for people on a fixed income or with limited means to then have to go buy, whether it's at the grocery store or someplace else, their reusable bags and maybe keep a supply of them. And so at that point, I believe FCS had was given access to be able to purchase a supply of them for their consumers and their clients. And I think something like that could very easily be worked out for the pay-as-you-throw trash bags. I don't think that would be a complicated arrangement to come up with at all.
Mr. Chair, you've got a counselor with their hands up. I've got
Councilor
something to add, but also an audience member, Kate Rosenfeld from the Sustainability, or formerly of the Sustainability Committee, with their hand up as well. So
yeah, let's go. Chip, why don't you go?
Okay. Are those the bags we can't use right now because of COVID? The reusable grocery bags, or is that?
Very recently, good point, touche. The grocery stores have now allowed them if you pack them yourself. They're not having their staff pack those reusable bags. But
That
yes.
wasn't the real question. The real question is, does this take, with option 3, does it take away the transfer station? Does any of that include the transfer station being eliminated or not being used to do recycling? And 2, what guarantees that people are going to be recycling even though they have that ability with the option 3, right?
So it does take away, it takes away the MSW and the recycling service. It does not close the transfer station. There's still things that are done up there that this wouldn't replace. We may see similar or slightly reduced hours. We would anticipate keeping the staff, but they'd only be handling bulky waste, yard waste, TVs, things, the other things beside the 2 compactors in the front, essentially. And they would be maintaining the program. That would be administration of the program. That would be, that would probably involve in, inspection and following up on routes. And if you've ever, anybody who's ever run a municipal recycling or garbage pickup program, it's the #1 source of complaints in your community, just because they didn't pick up my trash, or they hit my barrel, or they didn't do this or that. I mean, it just, there's a ton of customer service that would fall back, a lot of it would fall back on the town. So it wouldn't eliminate the transfer station or our staff. It may kind of change the mission of what they're doing up there a little bit. It would take away, this does anticipate taking away the drop off at the transfer station, because everybody would have, to Councilor Riley's point, maybe not, they'd have curbside service, maybe not driveway service.
Right. And I know that's, the nice thing about Dan, I used to use them, is that if I didn't get it out the house, he would come in and take it. Whereas if I missed it, if I didn't get it out to the road, I'd have to wait another week, and that just causes, well, that can cause a lot of problems. But so we wouldn't get rid of it. Well, could we do both? I mean, I still want to, I like going over to the transfer station and doing my recycling all there. Is there a combination there? I guess there's not.
I mean, as the town council, this is limited by your imagination. You could have 5 different methods of throwing away trash if you want. It's just the economics eventually will have to be, that may not be huge to leave some type of pickup at the transfer station. I mean, we could look at that if that's what the council wants to delve into.
I would agree with Councilor Lawrence that that kind of transition might be just the thing to sort of help bring this change in behavior about. I don't think we would be wise to assume that we pick a date sometime in the future if we move forward with this and say, 2 days before that, you're doing this, and starting next Monday, you're going to be doing that. I think it makes good sense for us to implement these kinds of behavioral changes across an entire community over a period of time so that people have a chance to get used to it. And then, for instance, if we were to move forward with the curbside trash and recycling pickup, it very well may be that after some period of time, let's say 6 to 12 months, we get data from Adam's team that that the staff at the transfer station are seeing 12 people a week instead of the 500 or whatever it is that are going there now.
I think we just lost almost everybody on this meeting, and Tawny texted me that she just lost power, and we just lost like a bunch of, at least I'm seeing that we lost a bunch of counselors and we lost Peter. Are you seeing that?
Yes, I'm seeing you and Adam on my screen. I think that's probably what happened, is that there's a power outage.
Yeah, I'm in Rhode Island, so I'm not on the power circuit that you guys are on. But Tawny said that she lost power. She's waiting for her generator to kick in, but that's what alerted me that there's a power outage, and then everybody else just went off.
Yeah, which, well, it still says we're live streaming. I don't know if we're still able to be accessed from the public.
We don't have a quorum anymore.
No, we don't. I have Peter calling me on my cell phone.
Yeah.
So
Hey there.
let's stay connected. I'm recording.
You got a power?
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm not, but yeah, I believe I do. I'm usually the first one to go. I'm on the Lisbon 125 circuit, so.
Dan is back on.
Yeah, we'll adjourn the meeting, and we'll have to send apologies to the sustainability board again that we're not going to be able to hear from them. Yeah, yeah, I think that's, well, we don't have quorum, so we're going to have to end the meeting here. Right. Okay. Yep.
Oh, Connie's. Oh wait, people are coming back on. Maybe John. Maybe people
All
with
right,
generators are able to come back in.
All right, I'm back.
Tracy and myself. So we have 4.
Oh, Dan's in the dark.
Yeah. Well, the Zoom call is still going. I don't know if we're broadcasting.
Oh, until we get Peter, I think he's.
Yeah.
So Doug and I were on with Peter at the beginning of the meeting, and he said that if it goes off on his end,
and
the meeting was over.
Yeah, I mean we don't. Well, we technically have a quorum right now, but we have no town manager. So I don't know what John's going to do about that. I would assume we'll call it, but.
So wow, we all went out at the same time, huh?
Yeah.
okay.
Even Doug, who said it wasn't windy at his house.
Yeah.
It's windy. It's always windy here, but it's windy here.
Peter just advised that all of downtown is out, or most of downtown is out, as we can see from Dan's background. So I think we'll take a motion to adjourn. Apologies to the sustainability folks who attended yet another meeting and have not been able to be heard. So we apologize. Not much I can do about tropical storms knocking out power.
We do have an extra meeting in August, so we can take it.
Right. We have a meeting coming up in 2 weeks. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Councilor Tracy, we're voting on this. Councilor Whitney,
Yes.
Councilor Pilch,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. We are adjourned. Well, we bounced right back up again. So thank you all for persevering. Dan, I hope you get your power back. I'm going to go out and make sure I got fuel in my generator because I'm sure I'm next.